Okay, you guys, so you'll see here I've went ahead and removed the head. It's really simple to do. There's one bolt and a couple links holding it on. You don't have to do that, but I like to do this because after we set up the CCPM and then we go through 90 in our servos, I like to slide a Swashplate Leveling tool onto the main shaft and make sure my swash plate's perfectly level. I'm really picky with that. So if you don't have a Swashplate Leveling tool and you just like to do it by eye, then go ahead and leave your head on. But if you plan on using one, now's a good time to remove it. So what we're going to do now is mechanically our servos are all at 90 as close as possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to do what I call picking the odd man out. Okay, and there's a reason why we haven't added any sub-trims yet. The reason is say we added a positive amount of sub-trim to this servo to get it at 90. Well, if it turns out that I need to reverse that servo, it's also going to reverse the amount of sub-trim, and then we're going to be even further off than where we needed to be. So mechanically, we get them at 90, and then what I do is I come over here to my radio, and you can pick any control. I like to do the collective pitch because it really shows you all three of the servos mixing together. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to move our collective stick all the way up, and we're going to see what happens. So you'll notice when I move it up, two servos move down, one servo moves up. If I move it down, same thing, two servos are up, one servo's down. So when I say pick the odd man out, what I mean is we're going to pick the one servo that does not travel with the other two. And this is always, actually probably this is always the case. There's always one servo that's not going to move the way it needs to. Don't pay attention to whether it's moving up with the collective and down, because if that were the case, we would leave this servo alone and reverse these two, which isn't a problem, but it's always best to reverse the fewest amount of servos possible and then use the Swash Mix menu to go through and reverse the channel movement itself. And we'll get into that here in a minute. So you'll notice we've got two servos moving together and one of them not moving with the rest, which is this guy right over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over here to our radio, okay, and we're going to find the Servo Reverse feature, which on a DX8 it's going to be all the way up here, servo setup, okay, and we're going to want to find reverse. Now that servo is more than likely going to be either your pitch servo or your aileron servo. So real quick, just to find out, because the wiring on this one's a little bit enclosed, let's go ahead and reverse this servo here, which is our aileron. Okay, I'm going to give it a click here. Now, we come over here, we're going to see what happened when I reverse that. This is how we'll know if we did it right or wrong. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say now, two of them are moving up and one of them is moving down. So that is not the result that we wanted. So what we're going to do is we're going to come right back to here. We're going to unreverse that. And now we're going to go and find the pitch servo, because we know that that's what it is. So when I reverse that servo, let's come over here and see what the result was to that. Now you'll see the swash plate looks pretty level. Obviously not perfectly level, but it leveled itself out. And what's going to happen now when I pitch up, look at that. They're all mixing together. It doesn't matter that when I pitch up, it goes down, or when I pitch down, it goes up, because we're going to fix that here in a minute. What matters is we reversed one servo, the odd man out, and all of our servos are now moving and mixing together. Also at this time, take note, let's do the elevator and see what happens. When I move forward on my stick, you'll notice we're tilting backwards. Of course, that's reversed. Don't go through and start reversing more servos. What's important is that the elevator itself is performing properly. All three servos are mixing together to perform forward and backwards. Now if we take a look at right and left, that one also is reversed. But they're mixing together to perform our movement, okay? So that's what's important here. So now what we need to do to finish setting up our CCPM is take note here. We're going to scroll right over here. And it's important, guys, that we have not added sub-trims yet. We don't need to worry about that if you're asking yourself that question. What we're going to do is we're going to go and find our Swash Mix menu, or on the DX8 it's called Swashplate, okay? And we've got three settings here. We've got aileron, elevator, and pitch. And this is what we're going to use to fix this problem we're having. So I always start with pitch. You'll notice we're at a plus 60. This is usually a default setting for almost all radios. They're going to set it right to about 60%. Don't leave these numbers. We're going to adjust them here a little bit later on. But so what we want to look at right now is our collective sticks all the way down. When I move it up, the swash plate should want to move up, and the servos should all mix up together. Well, what I'm getting is a downward movement, which obviously is incorrect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to change that plus 60 to a negative 60. So once I get into the negatives, I'm going to stop right here at negative 60. Okay. Now you'll notice when I move my collective up and down, our swash plate wants to go up and down. Okay, so we've went ahead and reversed that mixing function itself, not the individual servos, but the mixing function. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at elevator, which is forward and backwards. When I go forward, the swash plate wants to come backwards. So same thing, okay, we're going to go ahead and repeat that process. We're going to come over here to elevator, and we're going to reverse that. And it's actually looking like all of these on this particular heli are going to need to be reversed. And please take in mind, this all varies with servo type, helis, radios, all that stuff. So it's never going to be exactly the same. So we reverse that one. Same thing. Now, forward is forward, backwards is backwards. Forwards, backwards. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and do our aileron. That one also needs to be reversed. When I go right, it's going left. Okay. So, same thing. Let's go ahead and shoot over to a negative 60. I hope this isn't getting boring. I know it's kind of repetitive here, but I want to make sure I capture everything for you. So, get that right at 60. Now, let's check that again. Right, left, forward, backwards, up, down. And one thing I always check to make sure, even though we just did all that and we know that it's correct, is I like to stir my cyclic in a circle, clockwise or counterclockwise, whatever you choose. But the swash plate should follow that direction of travel. So if we go clockwise, you'll notice we're mixing clockwise here. If we go counterclockwise, we're mixing counterclockwise. So that's the CCPM setup. We know everything works. Collective works. Everything works. Don't worry about these numbers for right now because we will come back to them. So go ahead and get yourself to this point. Remain in the DIR setup mode. Get your CCPM set up, and now we're going to go through and we're going to 90 our servos using subtrims. Okay, you guys, quick recap again. We're in the DIR setup mode. We went ahead and mechanically 90'd our servos. We picked the odd man out in servo reversing, and then we went ahead and set up the CCPM using the Swash Mix menu to reverse the mixing functions as needed to get the correct movements. And you know, constantly double check, make sure everything's right. Once we're done here, what needs to happen now is we're going to come back into our radio, and this is a must. Always make sure you go right back to 50 in, 50 out. And to do that, we're going to go into our pitch curve. We're going to look at this. As long as we're linear, 0, 25, 50, 75, 100. Make sure we get our stick right to where 50 in, 50 out happens. That's where the magic spot is. Okay, and once that's set and done, our servos are back to their center neutral position. From there, we've already done the mechanical 90, and some of them aren't quite perfectly 90. So now that we've got the reversing of the servos out of the way, what we're going to want to do is find wherever in our radio we do subtrim. Okay, and we're going to do the servos just one at a time. Now, once again, I didn't wire this heli. If you're working on someone else's heli and you need to know which channel's which, just remember, we reversed the pitch servo, which we now know which one that is. That's this guy over here. So we're going to start with Aileron, which is going to be this servo right there. Okay, so we're gonna highlight Aileron, and we're going to start adding subtrim, either positive or, in this case, to the right or to the left, until we find 90. And I'm going to do this off camera so I can really focus on it, but you'll notice when I add to the right, it's going up, and when I add to the left, it's going down. Okay, now the key here is by the time we're done, if we end up, say, maybe in the 2022s, God, that's a bit much, but it's not really pushing it. If we're like this, to get 90 degrees, you need to add or buy or find a different servo arm. and get your mechanical 90 a lot closer, because this right here is going to take away from the throw of your servo and you're going to get a sloppy performance. The goal to sub trimming is to get the mechanical 90 as close as possible and use the smallest amount of sub trim needed to get that perfect 90. And I always just eyeball my servos. We'll talk a little bit later about how to know if you're at dead 90 or not. So go ahead and go through and 90 all your servos using the sub trim menu. Try to use the smallest amount possible, but also don't be afraid to use some sub trim. So I'm going to get that done. We're going to come back and review my settings and what I ended up getting on the T-Rex 500 EFL. Alright, you guys, so I went through and I added all my electronical sub trims. Okay, and I got my servos to what I hope 90 is using just my eyeballs. Okay, and I'm going to go over real quick with you some of the sub trim settings I got. Okay, and like I was saying before, it's kind of hard to avoid sometimes getting a high number, but try to avoid it. With this kit, they only supplied, so many servo horns, so I had to kind of make do with what I had. So my Aileron had about a 7, which is pretty good. That's a good number. Elevator ended up with 22, which is you're still in the green. It's not too bad. Now the pitch I had a bit of problems with. I ended up with a 41, which that's pretty high. It's at the point to where if this were my heli, I'd get a different servo arm and try to lower that number by getting a better mechanical 90. But sometimes it's unavoidable, and that's the wonderful world of RC helicopters. So get it to where you need it to be, get that 90, and here's how we're going to check whether this is a bad number or a good number, or if it's going to work or if it's not going to work. So what we're going to do, and this is where a Swashplate Leveling tool comes in very handy, is we're going to come over here. We're going to go ahead and slide our Swashplate Leveling tool on. Make sure the little arms are lined up, okay? And what I do is I look at one connection point at a time. And what you're going to want to do is go through the full travel of your collective stick and watch that Swashplate tool and make sure that it stays connected at all times onto that leveling tool. So I move this nice and slow up and down, and that one's staying on. It's not raising and it's not lowering, which means my Swashplate and all my servos are moving up and down in sync with each other. One's not moving higher, one's not moving lower. So we know that that servo is right at 90 degrees. Okay, and do take into consideration if this servo was off a certain degree and the other two were off the same degree, then you're still going to travel level. But it's not too hard to spot 90 degrees. Same with this one. We're going to move it all the way down. We're going to move it all the way up, all the way down, all the way up. So the front two are staying with each other. Now I will tell you this back one was kind of being a pain in the butt. It was being grouchy. You'll notice it stays level, and then as it gets towards the very, very top, we lag behind just a little bit. I'll show that to you again right there, just a little. Now this is a small amount, and once again, if this were my heli, I'd change the servo arm out, lower that sub trim amount, because that's what's causing it. We went 22 clicks down to where the servo lost a little bit of its full travel. And that's a small amount. We may not even hit this high up on our collective pitch. We may actually end up only maxing out our pitch to about there. So to me, it's not too big a deal. That's a very, very small amount. Now if we were traveling down the pitch and we were lagging like this or something, that's a big deal. But that little bit, not too big a deal. So our Swashplate's staying nice and level. And of course, to get the Swashplate Leveling tool on, I did forget to add, I'm sorry, you're going to need to adjust your links, obviously, to get the Swashplate level after we've 90'd the servos. So make sure you get that done as well. But once your Swashplate's level, drop your tool on, do this little check. Once your Swashplate's traveling level up and down through the full collective pitch range, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next step. At this point, you can reinstall the head, whether it's fly-barred, fly-barless, or DFC. Go ahead and get that installed, and we're going to continue on.